For thousands of years, her name has echoed through the ages, in forgotten temples, in ancient legends, in modern films, novels, and video games. A single creature continues to fascinate as much as it terrifies: the gorgon Medusa. Or rather, Medusa. Among all the creatures born from Greek mythology, few figures are as instantly recognizable as she is. A terrifying face, living serpents in place of hair, and a gaze capable of transforming men into stone. But behind the monster lies a far darker story, a tragedy, a curse, and above all, a brutal reminder of the cruelty the Greek gods could inflict upon mortals. Because in the ancient myths, humans were often nothing more than toys in the hands of the divine. Today, on Chronicles of Shadows, we will explore the true origins of Medusa, her place in Greek mythology, the most famous versions of her legend, and why this ancient creature continues to captivate humanity's imagination to this very day. The earliest known mention of Medusa appears in the writings of the Greek poet Hesiod. In his celebrated work, the Theogony, he describes the Gorgons as numbering 3. There was Steno, Euryale, and Medusa, the only one of the 3 to be mortal. Yet many modern historians now believe the Gorgon's tale is likely far more ancient still. Like many Greek myths, their stories probably existed for centuries in oral tradition, long before being recorded in writing. And for the ancient Greeks, these tales were not mere fantastical stories. They were sacred. Most truly believed these events belonged to a forgotten heroic age, a time when gods, monsters, and men still walked side by side. In this ancient world, Medusa was therefore not simply an imaginary creature. She was part of their history, of their collective memory,
and perhaps even of their deepest fears. As Hesiod explains, the Gorgons were 3 sisters: Steno, Euryale, and the most famous of them all, Medusa. Their origins were directly linked to the oldest and most terrifying forces of the Greek universe. According to mythology, they were the daughters of Keto, a primordial sea deity associated with the ocean's monsters and the hidden dangers lurking beneath the waves. Their father was Phorcys, another ancient sea god representing the unknown depths and the nightmarish creatures of the abyss. Even their name already announced the horror to come. The word Gorgon comes from ancient Greek gorgos, which can be translated as fierce, terrible, or dreadful. As for the name Medusa, or Medusae, it means guardian or protector, a curious detail when you consider what the creature would eventually become. In the Theogony, Hesiod also explains that the 3 sisters lived far to the west of the known world, near the kingdom of Night, and not far from the Garden of the Hesperides. When ancient texts speak of Night, they were likely referring to Nyx, the mysterious primordial goddess of darkness. The Gorgons had equally troubling sisters, the Graeae, ancient divine beings who shared between them a single eye and a single tooth. Their role was to guard the passage leading to the Gorgons, to prevent travelers, heroes, or the foolish from approaching their lair. And when we examine the ancient depictions found on Greek vases, the Gorgons had a very different appearance from what we often imagine today. They were depicted with massive dark wings, enormous unblinking eyes, gaping mouths, protruding tongues, boar's tusks, and of course, living serpents in place of their hair. A face designed to provoke terror, a gaze impossible to forget, as if the ancient Greeks had wanted to give physical form to nightmare itself.
But according to another version that became extremely famous, Medusa was not always this terrifying monster. This story comes to us from the Roman poet Ovid in his work The Metamorphoses, and this version of the myth is probably one of the most tragic in all of Greek mythology. Before her transformation, Medusa is said to have been a young woman of exceptional beauty. Some accounts even claim she was the most beautiful of Athena's priestesses. a sacred servant who had sworn to remain a virgin in honor of the goddess. For Athena was among the rare virgin goddesses of Olympus, alongside Artemis and Hestia. But one day, the sea god Poseidon caught sight of Medusa, and according to Ovid's account, he was immediately consumed by desire. Unable to control himself, Poseidon raped the young woman inside Athena's own temple, a sacred place, a divine sanctuary. But in Greek mythology, the gods were seldom punished for their actions, and it was not Poseidon who suffered Athena's wrath. It was Medusa. For having desecrated the temple, the goddess transformed her beautiful hair into venomous serpents. Her face became grotesque, and henceforth, anyone who met her gaze was instantly transformed to stone, a horrific punishment inflicted upon a victim by a goddess meant to protect her. And it is precisely this injustice that continues to make Medusa's story so compelling to this day. For behind the monster, many now see a tragic figure, a woman destroyed by the gods themselves.
The most famous myth involving Medusa remains, of course, that of her death at the hands of the hero Perseus. Depending on the version, the reasons for this quest vary slightly. In some accounts, King Polydectes sends Perseus to kill Medusa in order to be rid of him. In others, the king simply wishes to eliminate the hero so he can seize control of his mother, Danae. But regardless of the version, Perseus ultimately accepts this suicidal mission, and the gods themselves will aid him. Athena gives him a bronze shield polished like a mirror, an essential object to avoid Medusa's petrifying gaze. Hermes gives him winged sandals. Hades lends him his helmet of invisibility. And according to some accounts, Zeus or Hephaestus provides him with a blade capable of severing the gorgon's head. But before reaching Medusa, Perseus had to find the Graeae, the mysterious sisters sharing a single eye. Taking advantage of the moment when they passed their unique eye between them, the hero managed to steal it, and in exchange for its return, they revealed to him the gorgon's exact location. Thanks to the winged sandals, Perseus finally reached the island where the three sisters dwelled. Then he quietly entered their lair, never looking directly at Medusa. Using only the reflection in Athena's shield, he slowly crept toward the sleeping creature. Then, in absolute silence, he raised his weapon, and with a single blow, he severed her head, never once meeting her gaze. But the moment Medusa's blood touched the ground, two creatures immediately emerged from the wound: the winged horse Pegasus and Chrysaor, her monstrous son, born from the union between Medusa and Poseidon. Meanwhile, the other two Gorgons awakened, but Perseus managed to escape thanks to Hades' helmet of invisibility and Hermes' winged sandals. Even in death, Medusa remained terrifying, for her head retained its power still.
On his journey home, Perseus encountered a young princess condemned to die, Andromeda. Chained to a rock at the sea's edge, she was to be sacrificed to a sea monster sent to destroy her father's kingdom. But Perseus arrived just in time. He battled the creature, defeated it, and saved Andromeda, who later became his wife. Eventually, when he returned to the island of Seriphos, Perseus used Medusa's head against King Polydectes, and like all who dared to look upon the Gorgon's face, the king was instantly transformed into stone. In ancient Greece, this tale was incredibly popular. It appeared everywhere, in poetry, in sculptures, in frescoes, and in temples. Authors like Hesiod, Homer, and Apollodorus regularly recounted the story of Medusa and Perseus, and this success likely explains why Medusa's head appeared so often on the doors of homes, on shields, or on sacred buildings. Modern scholars now believe her face served as protection against evil, a symbol intended to repel dark forces, much like the gargoyles of medieval cathedrals, or certain monstrous figures in Mesopotamian mythologies. But as time passed, several researchers began to see Medusa differently, no longer simply as a monster, but as a symbol. For some, her eyes represented the capacity to see beyond illusions, to reveal hidden truth, and the serpents of her hair could symbolize the eternal cycle: death, rebirth, and transformation, like serpents that shed their skin, an interpretation far more sinister and far more profound than that of the simple ancient monster.
Even today, Medusa continues to exist throughout modern popular culture. In films, in novels, in television series, in video games. She sometimes appears as a bloodthirsty, monstrous creature, or conversely, as a tragic woman victimized by the gods. One of the most well-known modern versions remains Medusa in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian saga, where she harbors a deep hatred toward the gods of Olympus. We encounter her again in the film Clash of the Titans, in which Perseus must retrieve her head to defeat the Kraken. And in the video game universe, Medusa appears in many celebrated franchises, such as Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Kid Icarus. And these are merely a few examples. For more than 2,000 years, the gorgon has continued to captivate humanity, as if her gaze continued still to watch us across the centuries. And perhaps the real reason why Medusa fascinates us so deeply is not her monstrous appearance, but the tragic story hidden behind the myth. For in Chronicles of Shadows, the most terrifying monsters are not always what we think. And that concludes our journey into the dark and tragic history of Medusa. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to subscribe to Chronicles of Shadows to discover other forgotten tales, ancient gods, mythological creatures, and obscure legends from the depths of the past. And tell me in the comments, which version of Medusa do you find most striking in modern popular culture? Thank you for watching until the end, and see you soon in the shadows of Chronicles of Shadows.